Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Sorry for the background noise. There was a car. I'm good. A bit tired. How are you?
Yeah, the same, but I'm okay. Don't know, I'm excited about a couple of things. It's been like an exciting week. Also, of course, well, big news for both of us, or something to celebrate at least for both of us, right? We got Eras Tour tickets, and
Yes.
maybe I should have been a bit less like
Braggy.
braggy braggy about this because I don't want to get attacked. but yeah, we did it. I'm so happy. We survived the Great War of 2023.
Oh my god, poetic.
I'm so happy though. We're going to Vienna. I have never been to Vienna. It was like my number one city that I wanted to get Eras Tour tickets to. So I'm so excited.
Yeah, I will give you the great tour of Vienna.
Yes, please do.
I just came back from Vienna, well, 3 days ago. And I just hope when we go there next year, it's not as hot as it was the week I spent there because it was 35, 36 degrees in the city. It is not nice. It is not nice. I mean, we had a nice time because we just went to different pools and stuff. And we're outside in the shadows near water. But God, it was warm. The heat has taken me out so much that when I got back on Friday, I just fell asleep at 8:15 and I woke up 12 hours later.
I mean, the difference in temperatures between like mainland Europe and the UK was so extreme because
It's wild.
I went to St. Ives, like in Cornwall, so a very nice coastal town, and we basically had rain for 4 days, and it was like 18 degrees. It was still lovely, but I could have done with a bit more sunshine. But yeah, I mean, it was like two extremes. So
Yeah,
crazy.
there's no middle. There's no middle anymore.
No.
Anyway, so was there something you wanted to go back to relating to last week's episode, Gladys?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So when we're recording this, the episode is about to come out, and I'm very excited because, yeah, like I said last week, it means a lot to me. It's a very important one for me, as well as this one today. But as I was like listening to it again, which I did a couple of times, I'm not gonna lie.
We have to test listen.
Of course, yes. So I wanted to add one more thing because I realized as I was listening to this, I was like, oh, I am being very negative and very glass half empty about dating as a fat person. So I do actually want to add just a little bit of positivity to this, because yes, I mean, like I said last week as well, dating as a fat person can be strange. It can be a little bit awkward. You can, like, I, for example, had that feeling that like, ooh, I need to mention this somehow. I need to warn people. Of course, I don't feel that way anymore now. I used to feel that way, that I needed to say this beforehand because I didn't want things to get, especially with like online dating and stuff, I didn't want to go on a date with someone and then see the shock on their faces or anything. And so I realized that I shared that aspect of it, but I also want to make it very clear to everyone that it is 100% possible to find love and find someone who loves you at whatever size. And yes, some people won't like you because of your size. Some people won't be attracted to you because of your size. They are missing out.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, and I mean, I also won't say something like, oh, they won't care about your size, because I feel like that implies that your size is something that the other person would need to get over, that it's some kind of obstacle, that they would love you despite of your body. But no, they will love you and your body. And the main thing I want to say is, if someone isn't attracted to you because they think you're too fat or too thin or too tall or too short or too whatever, and they wouldn't like you if you gained weight anymore, or they comment on it, or whatever the case may be, then this is not somebody you should want to be with at all.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's just kind of what I wanted to say. It's perfectly, like, there are a lot of people out there who are not fatphobic, who don't think that way, who would love to go on a date with you. So, yeah, that's it.
That was very nice. And I agree. If there's someone out there telling you, oh, now you've gained weight or lost weight or whatever, and I don't want to be with you, then I don't know. The only weight you should lose is them.
Honestly, yes. Lose a couple of kilograms immediately.
Oh, well. Well, should we now maybe introduce the podcast? We haven't done that yet.
Oh my god, no, we have not. We have not. What if people are here and they have no idea who they're listening to? Let's do it.
Let's do this. Well, welcome to Millennial Musings, everyone. I am Isabella.
And I'm Gladys, and we are just two opinionated millennials who sometimes make dumb mistakes. What we want to do here is share our experiences and offer the advice that we wish we had received.
Yes, and disclaimer, we are not therapists or life coaches, and we have absolutely no criteria to be giving any advice whatsoever. But we could be your new bestie or your big sister, so sit back, grab a cup of whatever, depending on the temperature, and get ready for some millennial musings.
Yes, so as always, we focus on different themes and we try to answer 3 to 4 questions within these themes. Each question is one episode. This is our third and last episode of our self-love theme, and today we will discuss all things Afro hair, focusing on the question, if it's just hair, then why are we hiding it? I honestly think that for all the European haired listeners, there's a lot to learn in this episode. So this episode won't be about the best Afro hair routines or tips and tricks necessarily. It will be more about the deeper meaning of Black women showing their natural hair and about Isabella's journey of learning to embrace and love her Afro. So I would say keep listening because it's going to be very valuable for everyone, I think.
Thank you. And yeah, exactly. And just before we get into it, I want to avoid some confusion for those who haven't listened to our first episode, in which we talked about moving abroad. In our case, we both moved to the UK. I myself was born and raised in Austria, but I also spent quite some time in the UK as my dad lives here. And I'm mentioning this because when talking about my hair journey as a kid or as a teenager, I will mention the UK every now and again. So I just wanted to clear up why I went to UK hairdressers or how I had access to certain hair care products. But yeah, should we just get into it, Gladys?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So kind of like last week, we ask each other questions. So last week, Isabella asked me questions. This week, I will be asking the questions. So, shall we get started?
Let's do it.
Okay. My first question is, what is Afro hair and how is it different from other hair types?
Well, I think, first of all, it's quite important to mention that the hair types and textures can really vary among individuals, and that not all people with an African descent have the same hair type. Not everyone has the same afro. There is a hair diversity that exists within the African diaspora, and yeah, some people may have hair that falls outside the traditional afro hair type. So, for example, if I would have children, one could have really tight small curls like mine, and the other one could have bigger looser curls. You'll never really know, especially since my children will be mixed. Anyway, but yeah, Afro hair is in general put into different categories, and those categories are 4A, 4B, or 4C. And I, for example, I have 4C Afro hair, which means my curls are the most tightly coiled curly hair type. And it needs lots of moisture. Oh my god, and also protective hairstyles during specific seasons, especially cold seasons. But yeah, in general, Afro hair tends to be more fragile and prone to dryness compared to other hair types. And depending on your hair type, so for A, B, Aussie, you use specific hair care products or such as moisturizers, conditioners, and oils to just keep your hair hydrated and minimize breakage. One thing, for example, that I learned is that my hair actually needs a bit more protein, so I started doing a protein hair. How do you call it? Hair cure? Is that an English word? It's like a thing I have to do every 6 weeks for a while now. Anyway,
Oh, okay. Yeah, like a treatment.
treatment. Yes, that
Yeah,
was the
okay.
word. Sorry, I used the German one and put it into an English sentence. But yeah, so because the Afro hair can be more fragile, people tend to have so-called protective hairstyles, especially in winter. Those hairstyles can vary. They can be braids, twists, dreadlocks, cornrows, and I don't know, those are just a few. There are many more. But what's interesting about those hairstyles is that they have a cultural significance and they are rooted in African history. Because, for example, with braids in Africa, I'm sure it probably is still a thing nowadays, but especially back in the days, you could use the braid style to see which tribe someone belonged to. There's just so much more to it. And even in today's episode, we will literally just be looking at the tip of the iceberg when it comes to all things African hair history. But yeah, one thing I do really want to address when it comes to Afro hair is that some people still, probably still a lot of people, label natural Afro hair as either good or bad. And those labels, good hair and bad hair, they have historically been used in reference to African hair to describe hair that is either perceived to be more socially acceptable or compared to hair that is considered less desirable. And those terms, good and bad hair, are of course also rooted in, in the discriminatory and harmful beauty standards. Yeah, and the other sad thing about it is that those beauty standards now have been internalized by big parts of the African and Black communities. So there are many Black women who wear wigs or have weaves or straightened hair and do all kinds of chemical treatments just to hide their natural hair because growing up, that is what they have learned. That doesn't mean, of course, that having those hairstyles is bad or anything. Like, wear your wig, wear your weave. It's quite fun to have the options to change so many looks. But yeah, I just wanted to get into where those terms come from. And the notion of good hair obviously typically refers to the hair that is closer in texture to the European hair, like straight or wavy hair, while bad hair is used to describe my hair, basically. The tighter the coils are, the tighter the, oh my god, curls are, the badder, I mean worse, the hair is. So yeah, don't use those terms. There is no good hair and there is no bad hair. Hair is hair. Well, all hair is good hair, I would say.
Yes. Okay. Well, I have a first follow-up question already.
Yes, go for it.
So I knew about the term protective hairstyles. I didn't know, so that's the first thing I learned already, that this can be depending on the seasons or on weather. So let's say you have an afro and the weather, it's winter or it's very, very cold and you don't have protective hairstyles. Then does that mean that you need to change your hair routine based on those conditions?
I mean, every afro has a different hair routine, and I'm sure there are a lot of people who don't get a protective hairstyle in winter, and that doesn't mean you lose all your hair. I just prefer it because there's a lot of rain and snow going on, and it's just really cold, and then your hair is wet, and it's just a lot for your hair to take in, considering it's already that fragile. So when I get the braids, obviously the fake hair is wrapped around it, and it's like I don't have to comb it or anything. It's just like the style says, protected. If you don't have a protective hairstyle, I personally would suggest, and I'm not a hairstylist either, but I can just say what I know from my own hair. I would probably do more deep conditioning and make sure it's even more moisturized. And I would definitely, after my conditioning treatment, whatever, end my routine with a bit more oil so all the moisture is locked in. But again, it also really depends on your afro and what you're used to. Until I moved to the UK, I had no protective hairstyles and my hair was kind of fine. But yeah. I mean, I do have
Right.
to say,
Okay.
I've always lost a lot of hair whenever I stay. I mean, you know it. Whenever I stay at someone's place, you will find my hair for an eternity everywhere.
Yeah. I can confirm that, yes. um, but yeah, well, so yeah, like I said, I learned a lot already. I recently, a couple of weeks ago, read a book on Afro hairstyles or the history of Afro hair in general. And well, for me, who had no idea about any of this, yeah, I think it was quite interesting, even just to realize the difference in textures or where that comes from. And so, for example, I didn't know that not only the hair but also the hair follicle has a different shape, which means that the oil doesn't really spread the same way as it would with straight hair, for example. So yeah, that was something that to me was like, oh yeah, of course. Why
Yeah.
did I not know this?
I mean, when I heard that the first time, I was like, well, obviously that makes sense because my hair is also not growing downwards, it's growing upwards and nothing runs upwards, right? So the oil can't just run upwards like it runs downwards with your hair. So it needs just some extra TLC.
So, I would like to know what your hair journey was like growing up.
Well, I hope you've got some time.
I have all the time in the world.
Thank you. Well, it definitely was a wilder journey for my scalp. It went through a lot of tension and chemicals, but I actually need to try and get some pictures because we had school pictures taken every year. And if you look at the pictures of me from between the age 9 to 17, I have a different hairstyle in each picture. So my hair journey is basically neatly lined up if I would put all those pictures in order. But yeah, my first memory of any hair treatment, if you want to call it that, was the hot comb. How do you pronounce it? Hot comb?
Got home,
Hot
yeah.
comb. My dad had. It was basically just like any other Afro comb, but you were able to plug it in, and then it did heat up, and then when you comb your hair, it stretches it. But for me, it didn't really do much because my hair is so curly and like dense. It would just stretch my hair. It was easier to get my hair into a bun, but I wouldn't have straight hair hanging down my shoulders. The first time, though, that I had something more invasive done to my hair than just cutting it or using that comb was when I was 9, which I actually think is quite young, but I begged my mom to let me get a perm the next time we went to the UK because I wanted bigger curls. And I actually find it quite sad that without even having heard anything about good or bad hair with my 9-year-old brain, I just wanted to get rid of my 4C bushy hair. I kind of looked at myself and thought I wanted bigger curls because I just thought mine aren't pretty enough. And I do have a picture, like I said, from my school photographer. And I have to say, my hair looks pretty good. Like it worked well, but I don't think the perm lasted that long.
That's a very aggressive thing to have done as a 9-year-old. I would say so. And yeah, like you said, it's very very sad that a 9-year-old. But I think even with the most supportive family and everything, even if as a parent maybe you wonder where could this child have learned this, I think there's just impulses from outside just
Yeah.
every single second of the day. And
Oh yeah, just watching TV. I mean, I've never seen anyone on TV or in the shows I watched that had my hair, even when there were some black people on TV back in the day. But they all just had big curls or like straight hair. So obviously, I was like, I want that too. But I do have to say, my parents actually like, because I mentioned before that in some black communities and African communities, you grow up knowing or like being taught you need to hide your hair. I never had that. My parents always supported my hair. Well, they never said anything about my hair. They were just happy with whatever I was happy with. But I didn't get the idea from them to hide my hair. Yeah. But yeah,
so yeah.
sorry. I'm just gonna keep going with my journey because we are
Okay.
not even there. The second change that I had that was really a big thing for me was when I finally got braids for the first time. So braids, the ones that hang down, not the cornrows or anything, but like the braids with the extensions braided in. Um, yeah, I loved it because I was finally able to flip my hair, put it in a ponytail. I was just really happy with it. But the pain was real. Like even now when I get my hair when I get my protective hairstyle, my head is a bit on fire, but I'm used to it. I can handle it. It's not comfortable, but it is what it is. Just the first few days. But as a girl, as like a 10, 11-year-old girl, that was a lot of tension on my head. And I just remember sitting in the kitchen and my dad was getting me a hot, wet towel because that releases the tension, and then just rubbing a lot of lotion on my head. But yeah, I loved it and I had it done, I think, twice at least as like a child between 10 and, I don't know, 12, 13. But with 13, I also tried color in my hair for the first time. I actually did this in the little village I grew up in at one of the two hairdressers, European Austrian hairdressers. And I have to give them a shout out because they never said anything, asked anything about my hair. They literally just set me down and let me get wherever I wanted. I wish someone would have questioned why I wanted a red triangle on the top of my head, but they just did it and I was happy. But looking back at that picture, I'm just like, Jesus Christ, what was I thinking?
That's so random though as well.
I don't know why a triangle. I have absolutely no idea.
Was it I have questions. Was it like the top of your head or was it more like the back of your head?
So people can't do this now, but it was like on the side. Can you like on the side
Okay.
of my head and the long part of the triangle, like the back part of the triangle was towards the back of my head and the tip was at the front. Oh, it was just weird. All my friends hearing this are probably pissing themselves right now because they know exactly how I look like.
Oh my god, I want to know what inspired you to get that.
I will get you that. I will get all of you that red triangle picture. We will post it on our Instagram as soon as some of my family sends it over. Anyway, after the triangle era, I discovered what I like to call my nemesis, namely the chemical hair straighteners, or also called relaxer. But back then I thought, oh my god, this is my breakthrough. I don't know how I found out about them. And at this point, I think I was 14 or 15. But yeah, I found relaxers, and that's just a chemical that you put in your hair for a certain amount of time, and then you rinse it out, and then you use a straightening iron, and then you have straight hair. You do for, well, I did for at least, I don't know, maybe a week, and then my little curls come at the, what's the word from the top of my head?
The
Just start
root, the
growing.
roots,
Yes,
yeah.
the roots. They just keep growing, and then the straight hair obviously stays straight until you grow new hair. So I looked a bit like a palm tree as soon as there was a little bit of hair coming, new hair coming, and moisture was just my enemy. Every time it was a little bit muggy somewhere, my hair was just a mess, and it literally only looked nice when I came straight from the hairdresser. But I loved it. I remember the first time I came home and I actually had straight hair, and I just felt gorgeous and like I belonged, and I just found it was great. And I did that actually for a few years. I went to the UK. I bought the relaxer chemical hair tub and then brought it to my hairdresser and said, in back at home in Austria, and said, "Yo, can you please put this on my hair?" And they literally just did it. They didn't even question what this was. They literally just did it, and it went well. Like they didn't do anything wrong. The only time I actually got hurt with a chemical straightener was when I did it at home. I don't know. I think some woman came by that we knew, and she was like, "Oh, I can do this." And then my scalp was burning. That was the first time I actually felt the aggression of this straightener. Like it was on fire. Um, but yeah, your hair just literally breaks, and obviously you have to use the straightener all the time, so it's really not good for you.
No, it's also it's funny almost when you think about, especially in those, in that when we were that age, how we just were like, when you're that age, you're just like, I want this, and nothing
Oh
or nobody
yeah.
can stop me, Like I had my hair bleached from a very young age, probably too young as well, but I just didn't like my natural color.
Yeah.
And then I remember my mum, my mum gave me a perm at some point, but a perm on top of bleached hair it's not the vibe, because
No.
that's two extremely aggressive treatments. And I thought I looked like 80s Madonna. I felt like I was that bitch. I was walking around my secondary school being like, yes, yeah, I'm that one. Looking back, looking at these pictures now, my hair was dead. That was hay on top of my head. And I recently asked my hairdresser, like, hey, would you consider giving me a perm? And he immediately was like, don't ever ask me this again.
Did you actually? Do you actually want? Were you considering recently to get a perm?
Yeah, yes, because I hate that my hair is so incredibly straight. And it gets very greasy. That's the one thing though. When I had that perm, there was no grease or oil in my hair. Well, obviously because it was completely
Yeah, it
dry
was
and it was
killed.
dead. Yeah, it was yeah, exactly. But I did quite like that. But yeah, no, I was like, I don't know, I just want some more volume, and he was like, girl, you're crazy. Stop talking right now.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
can imagine.
when you're that age, and of course,
Oh, my parents had no chance to say no. Like, I wanted this and I would not shut up until I get it. Like, there was no way of
yeah,
changing my mind. Yeah. In between those times where I straightened my hair, well, first of all, at some point I moved on from buying the relaxer in the UK because we found a hairdresser in Austria that did a lot with like keratin, and they actually did quite a good job. It was still aggressive, but a bit less aggressive than the relaxer, I think. I had the keratin, and that made my hair go quite curly once it got wet, but it was really easy to straighten. But I still looked the same. It wasn't a look. Anyway, during that same period where I was straightening my hair, I also learned about weaves. And weaves basically are when, well, for a weave, they braid your natural hair onto your head. And then they use hair extensions. You can buy all kinds of hair. You can buy real hair, fake hair, whatever. And they then sew it onto your natural hair that is braided onto your head. So it's a sewed on wig, you could say, but a bit more uncomfortable because that is pain I've never felt in my life. And I have quite a high pain tolerance. I don't know how I did it with 14, 15 years old. I did it recently, 3, 4 years ago when I moved to the UK. I thought I'd give it another go. But oh my God, I almost passed out when she was braiding my hair onto my head because the tension she used. And I had barely anything to eat that day and I just saw stars. It got black in front of my eyes. It was a lot and it was so itchy afterwards. I had to get it all off my head 10 days later because it wasn't comfortable. It was horrible. But yeah, anyway, as a child, I did that. As a teenager, I did that. In Austria, actually, we found one woman who did it. And I mean, it wasn't a hairdresser. It was a bit of a bizarre situation because, well, she wasn't even African, first of all. It was just a white woman who knew how to do it. And it was in her home. And I was just sitting in one of those garden chairs in her living room that has like these weird garden pillows on it. Well, pillows on it that has like flowers on and everything, and there was a parrot flying around and I was worried the parrot's gonna poop on me. And I was 15, 14, and I was on my period and I was sitting there for hours, like probably 5 hours to get that hair done. And when I got up from the chair, there was a period stain on the chair and it was totally embarrassing because I was a teenager. And she
oh,
literally was like, oh, let me get you something. And she got me like basically something you give to people who are incontinent, like a massive diapery pad because she had nothing else. It was a thing. It was horrible.
oh my God, that sounds like a wild ride.
It was a wild ride, but honestly, the hair turned out okay. I was very happy. I did compensate though. My hair was so long. It went like until my lower back, down my lower back. But yeah.
But so is a weave considered a protective hairstyle as well? Because
Yes.
that sounds like a lot to go through.
It is the protective hairstyle, and weave's actually nice. Like, I would definitely have a weave again if I would find someone who can do it well. So if anyone's listening who knows someone who can do a really good weave, please hit me up. Send us a message on We Are Millennial Musings on our Instagram account, because I would love to give it another go. I think it can look really nice if it's done correctly, and if you prepare your hair as well properly before you do it. And I think mainly also your scalp. I think in my case it was so itchy because my scalp was just like giving up. But yeah, I guess that is all of my hair styles and journey. Well, that's my hairstyle journey, I would say, and I am surprised that I have a full head of hair at this point, because back then I really didn't take care of my hair or my scalp. I just did all those different hairstyles without knowing anything about the right conditioners, scalp oils, creams, whatever. I literally just bought everything in the drugstore, which was just all for European hair. I had absolutely no hair routine, and what Afro hair really loves and needs is a good routine. And yeah, the reason though why I wanted to talk through all those hairstyles is that I just wanted to hide my hair so badly that I really didn't care about pain or consequences. Or back then I didn't feel no pain because I can't remember. But there are so many women out there who actually have proper burns and injuries from those chemicals that are in the relaxer, and some people now have alopecia because of all the stress the scalps have gone through, either because of the chemicals or just because of all the braiding and the pulling, or just not the right care. And people do this because they have this urge to fit in, which, yes, I get it, because I had it too, because you don't think you're pretty otherwise. And like you said in our last episode, go listen to it, the only thing that needs to change is society and not you. Like, you are born that way, so you are beautiful the way you are. You do not need to change your hair. I think what would have helped me, and that's because media always had a big impact on me growing up, and still, it would be if like the women with the afros are seen as the pretty one that every man or woman wants to get. Show them as the main character, put them on cover of the magazines, and don't just choose the 4A hair. Every now and again, pop someone on there with a 4C afro. Like, it's just all about representation, I think. And also, if you have children, let them know that their natural hair is amazing and beautiful, and that they can have different hairstyles. Like, I'm not saying don't straighten your hair or don't get your hair braided or whatever. Just do it the right way. Do your research. Find a salon that you can really trust. Know how to prepare your hair before you do those hairstyles. And that's all. Like, I would love to have more of them, but different hairstyles, I mean, but I just don't have a place where I can really go to at the moment. I mean, I live not too far from London, but I'm also lazy. I'm too tired to do my research to find the proper shop. And if I find a shop or a salon that I actually think I would trust, they are actually just so expensive. I would have to pay a monthly salary to get my hair done. But yeah.
I mean, I think what you say, I think many people can relate to that in many different ways, because exactly, it's just that thing of like growing up a certain way, with consuming a certain type of, or the only media that exists at that point, and it's just so incredibly sad that so many people just grow up or spend their entire lives feeling like they need to. And I mean, I don't mean that in an accusatory way or anything. No. I spent 27 years of my life feeling that way, like I needed to change, and my life would start once I had finally reached these goals, or I'd finally made these changes. And it's just so like it's heartbreaking, honestly, because then once you realize that the problem is exactly like you said, how society looks at you and treats you, then it's just, then there's no going back, and you realize it, you just notice it in everything, which can be a little bit exhausting sometimes.
Oh yeah.
But then it's heartbreaking, honestly. So Well, so you have touched on this a little bit already, but so what was it like to grow up in a very white Austrian place? And did you have an Afro shop or hairdressers as a child that you would frequently go to? And do you have any now?
Well, I think when I was younger, I really loved the attention my hair got me. Not particularly that I love my hair, but definitely attention because I was a little attention whore, and I kind of still am. But what I loved as a child is that everyone wanted to touch my hair. I absolutely wasn't aware of how problematic that was. I mean, the older I got, the more annoyed I got. Well, I started to get annoyed that people want to touch my hair. Um, and I mean, I was 6, so how should I have known that this is weird that people want to touch my hair? I was just like, yeah, I'm cool. You can you can touch my hair. But it was just like it's weird. Strangers in the mall literally just came up and asked, "Can I touch it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." But it creeps me out thinking of it now. Um, but yeah, while I was loving the attention, I do remember craving straight hair. Um, because do you remember these twisty thingies that people get put in their hair, like usually on holiday or when there were some weird events going on in your town or
Yes,
village?
yes. And I always got one, and that to me hurt like a son of a bitch already. It hurt so much, but I wanted it every time.
Oh well, yeah, I mean I love them because I just got them put in the front and I had that one colorful string hanging down and then my afro popping up in the back. But I felt like I was a mermaid. I had the longest hair. I could flip it around. I just really enjoyed having that little string in, which is cute but also a bit sad. Um
That's
yeah.
heartbreaking.
I
Oh,
know. I want to give little Bella a hug.
yes.
But no, so hairdresser wise, like I said in my explanation of my journey, I do have to give Austria a little bit of credit. Like, it's not very modern when it comes to different races and adapting and stuff. But I never got turned down from any hairdresser. I might have had to explain some things, but they usually just went for it. Like that was the case until I moved away from Vienna. I mean, the fact that I could come in there with my tub of chemicals and say, please straighten my hair. It might kill my scalp, but please do it. They just did it. Or even when I had my weave, because the hair was so long that I always had in my weave, I cut it after a while because it got really tangly. And I was just like, this is a weave. This is how it works. Can you please just cut it and give me, and like blow dry it and whatever. And they were like, yeah, sure. Like, they never said no. They never questioned it. I think they found it quite interesting, to be fair. So that was always good. And well, now I do when I don't have a hairdresser. I have somewhere where I can go to get my braids done, but that's the only thing I get done there. I did well, she did ruin my hair once, but that wasn't the woman who owns the shop. It was like she had a help hired, and that help was weird, man. I mean, the experiences you have in some Afro shops are just interesting. But yeah, her help used gel. So when you start braiding, while you use the natural hair, they usually use some moisturizer, or like that woman who owns the shop, usually uses a moisturizer to then braid in the extension. But that help used hair gel instead, and I didn't notice. And I did notice though when I was taking the braids out, and I had to cut so much out of my hair because it was just all glued up, which was just very annoying. So yeah, I'll go there, but only if I know she's gonna do my braids. And yeah, I mean, going to that hairdresser, it's interesting because she is good at what she's doing. Like, she obviously is a braid master, I do have to say, the owner, I mean. But she does not know much about customer service. Like, I've gone there and she braided a quarter of my head, and then she was like, I now need to go to the post office. And then she let some help come in who was just sitting next to me eating chicken wings while she was just gone for 2 hours. And I mean, yeah, I'm not saying all Afro shops are like that, and I'm pretty sure if I would live in America, I would have a lot more choices to go to a normal hair salon. But the ones, maybe I just choose the wrong ones. I mean, I've been to one Afro shop where it wasn't even a hairdresser. It didn't look like a hairdresser at all. It was just a shop with like where food was sold, and then next to the freezer where the fish was in, she put up a folding chair and she was like, "Sit down." She was great. I mean, the hair looked amazing. That was a different one than I am going to now, but it's me. I mean, you have to expect some weird experiences every now and again.
Okay, well, so again, if anyone knows a very good Afro shop, hit your girl up.
I mean, there is one in London that I really want to go to. I don't even think, see, that's something I now need to research. If you call all Afro hair salons Afro shops or Afro salons, or if there's maybe a difference, maybe someone can educate me on that. There's one hairdresser in London, though, in Notting Hill, that I really want to try, but it's so expensive.
So, after all this, all these different eras and this wild journey, when did you decide to wear your hair naturally? Was that a conscious decision? Why did you do it? And then what did you struggle with? Or what were your thoughts or experiences when you started wearing your hair naturally?
Well, so at the end of school, I was 17 years old. I went to the hairdresser, and it was the day of my prom because it was my last year of school. And they messed up my hair. The hair looked like I sat there for hours and hours to get my keratin treatment done, and then she wanted to do a specific hairstyle after that she said will look amazing, and it was horrible. It was a horrible hairstyle. I hated it, and I think it was just a cherry on top of all the hair mess ups that I had. Like during that hair journey that I just told all of you, it didn't always go well. Like people were nice and they really tried, but it really wasn't always great. And it wasn't usually actually the straightening of my hair. It was then when they had to cut it, they just cut it really weirdly. That didn't work with my new hair growing out. And it was just at that point when she messed that hairstyle up when I was 17, I just was done. Was done with all the kerfuffle that I had going on in all those years. I was done with sitting at the hairdresser for hours and hours. I was done with always having to, I don't know, it just seemed so complicated to get my hair done. I was just over it. So, yeah, on the day of my prom, I decided to wear my hair naturally. I went home from the hairdresser and I washed it for a while to make it as curly as possible because I had the keratin in. And the curls were a bit bigger for at the beginning of my journey of wearing my hair naturally. But I kind of think it's quite poetic that the day I went to my school prom, it was my last year of school, and it was such a thing where you really want to look your best and where all the pictures get taken. I just wore my hair naturally, and I'm really happy that I did because those pictures I wouldn't want to look at with my straightened hair.
I wanted to
Yeah,
say it sounds like a movie.
it
With
does.
like the promise as the end and you
Finally found my hair love. Well, I guess that day I was pretty desperate and I was really angry and I was really upset. But now looking back, I'm glad I made that decision. I'm sure my mom had to listen to me yell for quite a while before I decided to just go home and wash my hair. But yeah, so I guess with 17 was when I actively decided to wear my hair naturally. And I do have to say I had a lot of days where I just didn't feel as pretty as my friends or other girls around me. But I kind of at some point just changed my mindset because it was also just easier than to find a hairdresser or than to sit at a hairdresser for hours and hours. And the bigger my afro grew, I also got more and more compliments from people, like strangers that didn't ask to touch my hair. They just told me that my hair looks nice. And that just did help, like getting that confirmation in a way. And it kind of is still the same. Like even now when I go to London and there actually are a lot of black people in London. Like a lot, But people still come up to me and tell me that they find it so nice that I wear my hair naturally. It's white and black people. Like when black women come up to me and tell me they really think it's amazing that I wear my hair out and that they find it inspiring, I feel just really touched because it's like, yeah, that's part of why I'm doing it also, like now.
that's really good. Yeah, that's lovely because I've also heard of instances where like black women will go up to other black women who are wearing their afros, and they tell them, "Hey, come with me. I can fix your hair."
Oh yeah.
Which for me, when I heard these things, was very much a realization of like, oh yeah, this is a much deeper issue,
Yeah.
that of course I had never really realized, or I'd never really thought about. So that's also why, yeah, it's, it's easy to say, just don't worry about it. You look beautiful. You're great. Your hair looks amazing, and of course it does. But when you hear these things, or
Yeah.
when you go to work and you get told, oh no, you need to have the same hairstyles as your colleagues, but none of your colleagues have the same hair texture as you, like it can be very challenging. I
Oh,
mean, I
it
don't know, but
can.
I
Yeah.
imagine it can be very challenging to love your hair then. So yeah, but that's really good that people are so nice and that they actually see. And I'm sure that when people see you wearing your hair naturally, and then maybe they don't, and there's like, of course that's fine, and everyone decides that for themselves. But maybe for them that does like plant a seed, or maybe inspire them a little
Yeah.
to, yeah,
I
maybe,
hope so.
yeah. No, I'm sure it
No,
does.
I do think it can have an impact. It definitely has an impact seeing people wearing the natural hair, because what really also helped me during my, I don't know, accepting my hair journey between 17 and, I don't know, almost 30. No, I'm good now. But yeah, what really helped me was social media. And it's the same as you said as well. Like, you just find right accounts to follow, and you just curate your social media. And I started following a lot of black girls and black women with big afros who, they just looked stunning, and I had to learn a lot about how to take care of my hair. And it became almost like a hobby just to look into how to do all of this. And I also learned, besides all the routines and hair care thingies, I learned how afro hair actually can be political, when you wear it out. And don't get me wrong, not everyone who's wearing the natural hair is doing this because they want to send a message. I mean, it's not just natural hair, also braids and dreadlocks and all of those hairstyles can be political. Doesn't mean everyone who wears it means it in that way. So please don't assume that. But yeah, for me, it feels like sending a message, and it does today more than ever. And yeah, social media definitely empowered me and made me finally accept and love my hair. And I do definitely still have days where I get annoyed, but not because I want straight hair anymore or because I want bigger curls. It's mainly because it's just still quite hard, as I mentioned, to find affordable, nice hairdressers. Or I also get annoyed because if I want to change my hair, I need to take a day off work because it will just take several hours, or I have to use my one Saturday where I don't have particular plans to just sit at the hairdresser. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then also, yeah, another thing, I was very shocked when I found out that, or when I was told that many, if you want to get your afro done, for example, if you just want to go to the hair salon and just get a nice treatment or something, that many afro shops or afro salons don't really know how to
Oh,
deal with
yeah.
natural hair, that they just literally are only trained, or they only know how to hide it. I was floored when I heard that, to be honest. I was like, excuse me, what do you mean? Like, so, and that says so much, the fact that these salons are not, they don't know what to do with hair that grows out of people's heads naturally.
Yeah. You go to Afro shop, back in the day at least, I think there's a lot of progress. Well, slowly but steady, but yeah, there's only like a handful of shops that I can think of where people actually know how to care for your hair and not just to hide your hair or straighten your hair or change the texture of your hair.
So that leads me to my next question. Where does that idea come from? That wanting to hide your natural hair? Where did that originate?
Well, as usual, we have to go back to slavery and colonialization.
No,
Surprise,
I'm
surprise.
pretending to be surprised.
Um, but yeah, obviously at that point, Afro hair texture was just deemed as undesirable, and it was associated with being primitive or uncivilized, and they compared it to the European beauty standards. So it didn't fit in, and people compared black hair to wool and therefore compared black people to animals. So enslaved Africans were often required to adopt the European hairstyles and the grooming practices, and that involved straightening the hair or wearing wigs to copy the European hair textures. And the goal of this forced, what's the word, assimilation was to erase the cultural identity and to show the dominance of the European norms and aesthetics. And the slave owners back then, they executed their control by cutting the hair off their slaves, and it made them feel even more dehumanized, and it obviously stripped them from their cultural identity. But yeah, it is therefore important to say that the impact of slavery and colonialization regarding Afro hair goes way beyond aesthetics. Obviously, it represents cultural erasure and racism, and that is why black hair is political. Like I mentioned before, black hairstyles and wearing your Afro out is political because it gives back what was taken away not even that long ago. And the thing is, though, which I said before, because of all that, hiding your natural hair is now rooted deeply inside the African and black communities. And yeah, you just grow up with learning to hide it. And so that's what you do. And you tell your children to do. And I actually am watching, and just like that, the Sex and the City. Is it? No, it's not a prequel. It's not a sequel. It's just a continuous story of Sex and the City. Anyway, they have a black character now, and she has a daughter, and the daughter has an afro, and there's this one. It's just a short scene, but I'm glad they put it in because the daughter is wearing her hair out, and then the grandma's coming to visit, and then the mother and the dad are like, oh my god, we need to hide her natural hair. And then they tell the girl, you have beautiful natural hair, you can always wear it out, it's your hair, you do you. But when grandma comes, we have to hide it. Well, we have to put it in a nice braid because she wants that. And then it turns out the grandma had to do that back in the day to be accepted, to even get a job and be accepted in America, because you needed to, well, adapt and not wear your wool, quotation marks, just out there. So I thought that was quite nice that they at least gave it 2 minutes of screen time. It's better than nothing.
No, definitely. Yes. Because the Sex and the City audience, well, yeah, are of course many different groups of people, but I think it's really good that that people see that, and then it gives them something to think about.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So what are some common misconceptions or stereotypes that are still associated with Afro hair today, like within the black communities and then also outside of them, of course?
Well, I think there are two misconceptions that particularly annoy me. One being that people think Afro hair is dirty or unkempt because you have no idea how much work people put in the Afro. So just go watch a YouTube video, put into YouTube daily Afro hair routine, and then tell me an Afro is dirty or unkempt. And also, people with Afro hair care more for their scalps than anyone else, I think, because I don't often see I don't think I ever saw a black person with dandruff. Is it dandruff?
Yes.
Sorry for everyone who suffers from it. I don't want to describe it. I just got a bit heated. It's not your fault when you have that. Anyway, moving on. The second misconception, or stereotype, is that annoys me, is that natural hair is considered unprofessional. I do have to say, I think because I grew up in Austria, and there just aren't really any black people. Well, there are black people, but not a lot, There was one other black family in my village. And yeah, because I grew up there, it wasn't really a thing. There weren't really any stereotypes about Afro or natural hair because, well, there wasn't enough people create any stereotypes, I guess. I don't know. I just never noticed it. I never had any problem with any job. I didn't have any problem at school. I just always wore my hair as I wore it. No one ever told me it's unprofessional or unwanted. So I myself was never really worried about this. But also since I've lived in the UK, I haven't experienced any discrimination about my hair at the workplace or yeah, anywhere really. I only found out about it when I was working on my short documentary. When I was doing some research for it, I found an article that mentioned do's and don'ts. So a list for how to show up at work in a law firm in America. That list was from 2017. And on the don'ts side was that you should not come to work with an afro or braids, together with mohawks and other half-shaved hairstyles. And I was just like, I mean, it literally grows out of my head. What do you want me to do? So yeah, that got me interested and I kept digging into it. And then I found many stories of Black women who all had troubles at their workplace because of either their natural hair or their braid style or whatever. And I also talked to some Black women here in the UK who said, one particular one said when she showed up, she was working at the company for a while, and when she then showed up with her afro the first time, she was really nervous because she was worried of getting into trouble. But her experience was good. There was nothing but compliments. But still, even the thought that you have to worry about that your hair is getting you into trouble, your hair that literally just grows the way it grows. But on that note, I just want to quote a paragraph from an article which summarizes my thoughts pretty well that I have on this topic. The article was written by Maya Allen. She studied journalism, and she focused on African and American culture. And what she says is, today, I like to ask everyone to stop saying it's just hair when it relates to Black identities. It's not just hair when the federal court once ruled it legal for employers to ban dreadlocks. It's not just hair when young girls in middle school are getting suspended for wearing their natural hair out. It's not just hair when Black women are getting fired from their jobs for the natural styles they choose to wear in their hair, and not because of their actions. It's not just hair when the kids in my predominantly white swimming class would stare and laugh at me when my afro turned kinky once it hit the water. And yeah, this is an extract from an article where 22 women talk about their experiences in the corporate world relating to their natural hair. So we can link it in the description notes if I find out how to do it. So you can go read it if you aren't shocked enough and want to hear more stories. But the good thing about this article is they're all happy now with their hair. Yeah.
That's a really powerful quote, I think, and that
Yeah.
definitely encapsulates a lot of like what we've discussed and the importance of it. So on that, what do you think has to happen for Afro hair to be totally accepted?
Well, again, I want to bring up how important I think representation is. I think Black women in powerful positions or like in the public eye should every now and again embrace their natural hair. I'm not saying that women who don't wear their natural hair are doing anything wrong, like not at all. But I think if you're in a position to change something, then let the fro out every now and again. I mean, compared to when I was growing up, a lot has changed already. There are many social media accounts and YouTubers, and Disney even made a short film about a little girl and her afro, and there are more series and movie characters now with their natural hair, but it's still happening very slowly. It's not really ever 4C hair that you see on TV, but I guess better slow progress than no progress. I do think though, like, what I always think about is, you know, how people said if Barack Obama would have been really, really dark skinned, would he still have become president, or was he just white enough to be president? So then I'm thinking, well, if both of them, him and Michelle, would have just worn big afros, would they even be considered a politician, or would it have just been too unprofessional? They probably wouldn't even have been lawyers back then when they had their big career moves happening, because yeah, it was seen as unprofessional to wear your afro out.
Yeah. You just don't see it often at all.
Yeah.
with people in the music industry, people, exactly, political figures. And I think, yeah, if we are honest with ourselves and we ask ourselves that question, would people like Barack Obama or Michelle Obama would they get the same level of respect? I think we know the answer to that. And I think that
Yeah.
just shows what the problem is. Also, that reminds me of, I saw this interview with Lizzo once, and it was it's the same interview, I think, where she talked about what I said in last week's episode, where she talks about like wanting to grab a kitchen knife and cut the fat off of her body. But it was one of those interviews where like every time she gave an answer, she also took an item of clothing off. So towards the end of that video, she was naked. She was butt naked. And then the last thing she needed to take off was her wig. And that was the moment she became so, like, you could see how nervous and how vulnerable she felt to take that wig off. And that, to me, was something where I was like, oh, okay, that's when I kind of realized how deep, again, how deep that goes. And
Yeah, that
just
you rather
the
be
fact-
naked in the public than to just show your natural hair, basically.
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah.
Okay. Well, so let's hope that we get there very soon and that we see more representation. So where are you now with your hair journey? How do you feel? How do you feel about your afro?
At this point, I think my afro hair is fabulous. I think it's special and it's beautiful.
Yes.
Yes. And I do see my hair as a mission. I just want to, well, if I can inspire one single person, then I'm happy. And I definitely want to be a role model for my little nieces who grow up in the same village that I did. And I just want them to never even question their hair and just always love it. And yeah, I do though still have to learn a lot about my own hair, how to braid it, how to style it properly on my own without having to go somewhere. I just want, in general, though, to wear my natural hair out as much as possible. Even though I do love how I look with braids, I just struggle with the effort and time that has to be put into it. But yeah, I guess that is where I'm at.
That's so good. And yeah, that's a great quote. The looking at your hair or seeing your hair as a mission. I love that. And I know it inspires people, and it probably inspired many people who are listening to this, and it definitely inspires your nieces as well.
Yeah, if the listener's still here.
Oh, they of course they are. They have to be.
If we didn't lose them at Dendorf Gate.
They all felt very attacked. No, but I mean, again, it's that thing, especially with young children, how you talk about yourself, whether it's your body, your hair, your whatever, how you talk about yourself impacts children so much.
Yes.
And so if they have an aunt like you who's just very happy with her hair, very confident, and if you teach them that there's nothing to not like about it, or there's nothing to,
hide. There's nothing to hide.
There's nothing to hide, yeah. Then I'm sure that will have a massive positive impact on them. Yeah. So then lastly, for all of us listening, what would you like people to stop saying or doing?
Okay, so number one, don't touch my hair. Don't touch any black person's hair. Don't touch anyone's hair. Like,
Don't touch anyone.
Don't touch people, okay?
Don't touch. Just don't.
No, but like, don't touch black people's hair because we're not animals you can pet. And also, it is gross. When was the last time you washed your hands? And like, the thing that shocks me most is people often just don't even ask to touch your hair. They just come up and they do it. And with that, I mean strangers. Like, where do you get the idea from that this is acceptable? Why? How would you look if I would walk up to you and touch your hair? Like, it would be so random. Yeah.
This honestly shocks me so much. And like, yes, I've seen it where I would, would be out and about with a person, with a black person, with a person with an afro, and people would literally just, yeah, like walk up to you and just
Grab it.
literally grab a handful of hair. What on earth is wrong? And these are adults. It's not
Yeah.
like they're children. These are
No.
adults who should definitely know better or have some common decency. What on earth do you think you're doing? No, I do not understand this at all. I
I
don't
mean,
understand this.
it hasn't happened to me in a very long time. I don't know if I just finally mastered my resting bitch face, but or people are actually learning. Who knows? But yeah, I do still hear about it. You still read a lot about it on social media, and I just don't understand why.
I recently heard about somebody who, when that happens, they say, "Oh yeah, can I touch your hair as well? Because it looks very thin and brittle." And
I love that. Oh god. Well, yeah. Okay. So, and the number two, I wish that people would. Well, let me do this again. Yes. So, and as a second thing that I wish people would just stop doing or saying is that I wish that people wouldn't always have something to say or to comment about my hair. Like, oh, which ballad do we get today? Or, oh, each hairstyle is a different persona. I get it. When a black person changes their hair, the difference usually is big. And I get it that it's normal for most people to react to that kind of big hairstyle change. And you can, of course. But like, just tell, if you like it, just come up and say, oh, your hair looks really nice. And that's it. Thank you. Leave it there. It makes me happy to hear a compliment, of course. But don't tell me it's a new personality. Don't tell me it's your favorite hairstyle of all my hairstyles. My hair doesn't need anyone's opinion because there's usually always a reason. Well, not always, but often a reason a black person has a hairstyle. Specifically for me, you might like my afro best out of all my hairstyles, but I will have to have my braids. And I don't want to have that in the back of my head that now some people think, oh, but I actually like afro best. Like, I don't need that. Just keep that to yourself.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's probably, well, people will feel attacked now. People who like go to the hairdresser, or they're like, oh my god, okay, I'm going for like a very big chop today. You won't be able to recognize me. And then the next day you're like, what changed exactly?
Yes. I have in my notes, but I didn't say it because I was like, I don't want to insult anyone, but now you did it, so it's fine. Um when people say I'm going to the hairdresser tomorrow, and then I forget that this person went to the hairdresser, and then I didn't realize that they were at the hairdresser, or someone tells me I've been to the hairdresser, and I go like, really? And then they cut a fucking centimeter. Like, yes, okay,
I know.
but I don't see that.
I know.
And also, I don't have the urge to comment on people's hairstyles because that's just how I am
But
used to it
yeah, no,
from my
like
own feelings
we're going
and
off topic.
experiences.
But I, especially in like secondary school and everything, I've always liked to, when I go to the hairdresser and when I pay quite a bit of money for it, I do like to see something change. I don't know, that might be a hot take, but I like to walk out looking differently than how I walked in. And so then I would always get the, what have you done? And it's like, I got my hair done. But yeah, then I mean, it's like my grandmother as well, because I get a different color usually every time I go, right?
And not just from blonde to brown, Gladys.
I
It's
currently
like
have
from
have
blue
a
to green
have a
to
rainbow
having
on the back of my
the
head, yes.
pride flag on the back.
And then my grandmother every single time, every 6 weeks, is like, I like the blonde better. Yeah, okay. You don't need to say that every 6 weeks. I'm not gonna stop dyeing my hair because I know that my grandmother likes it more blonde. Like, yeah. I mean, of course, I know that's not the same thing, but I had to think of that. Yeah.
No, I think people are aware of that. Anyway, this episode has probably been quite a long one, so should we just move on to our recommendations? Well, to my recommendations section in this one. Or do you could actually suggest a book that you have read about the hairstyles.
Yes, I could. Let me Google it while you do your recommendations.
Okay. The first thing I want to recommend is a movie. It is a rom-com The storyline is cheesy, but it is called Neppily Ever After, and it is about a woman who works in corporate America. She's really successful. She is very hyper focused on her hair to keep it as straight as possible, and it is just a good representation of how women can struggle with showing their natural hair. And she goes through a whole journey, and surprise, surprise, ends up with her hair cut off and whatever. So yeah, you can watch that if you just want some simple entertainment.
Do you remember how last week the last book I recommended was called Fattily Ever After?
Yeah. Oh my god, yes! It was Fattily Ever After, and now it's Neppily Ever After. I love this. This is amazing. Anyway, then the second thing I want to recommend is a documentary by Chris Rock. It is called Chris Rock's Good Hair, and it's a comedy documentary. It has been inspired by his young daughter when she asked him what's the difference between good hair and bad hair, and so he started a compilation. Well, he started interviewing people. It's a compilation of interviews with people like Ice-T and Dr. Maya Angelou, and he also visits like local beauty and braiding salons and talks about it. And then lastly, my last recommendation has absolutely nothing to do with hair, but I think it has some nice moments, and some of you might have watched it already. It is the series How to Get Away with Murder. There are just some moments where Annalise Keating takes off her wig in the evening and sits at her makeup table, and she looks in the mirror, and I don't know, I feel like these scenes just have something that makes you feel she's taking off her lawyer persona and now is herself, and now she can allow herself to suffer through all the stuff that she's going through all the time. I mean, she's killing people or something. I don't really remember who kills who, but yeah, I just really enjoyed those moments of I'm just going to show my complete natural self.
Yeah, I've never watched How to Get Away with Murder, but I definitely want to. It's on my list.
Yeah, at least the first season, or the second maybe. The others are a bit meh.
Okay. Yeah, so the book I read recently is called The Story of Afro Hair, 5,000 Years of History, Fashion and Styles, written by K.N. Chimbiri, and it has beautiful illustrations as well. It's only 125 pages, so you can just read it in like 2 hours. And yeah, I learned a lot from it. So
very nice. I thought you were going to say it's only £125.
No.
Oh. No, that is great. That is great. I should read it because I actually haven't read it or heard about it until now. Cool.
I really like it. It has some very important figures in it as well. For example, like the first hair salon and everything in the US, and then the first black woman who started selling hair products for black women, and yeah, it's very interesting. Okay, well, thank you so much for this. I think this was very valuable, and I think everyone learned a lot here. At least I did.
Well, I hope so. I hope I wasn't just insulting people all the way through the episode.
No, just the dandruff thing. But no, honestly, I think it's great how you talk about this and how confident you are now, and just how you talk about your hair journey. And I'm sure it is inspiring to people. So yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you. Okay. So before we wrap up, we just wanted to say, as always, a big thank you to all of you who made it to the end of the episode, and we hope you enjoyed it and maybe learned something from it, or even heard something that you could relate to. But do remember, the journey does not end here. We will be back next week with a brand new episode of a brand new theme.
Yes, and the best part, we want to hear from you. So we know that everyone has their own unique experiences and stories to share, and we want them. So don't be shy. Connect with us on Instagram at We Are Millennial Musings and share your own musings, funny moments, and the not so glorious times of being a millennial or any other generation. Everyone is welcome.
Yes, absolutely. So Until next week, stay curious and keep those stories coming. Bye!
Bye!